Good morning, everybody. It's nice to be with you again on another hot and sunny day. I hope we're all having a good morning so far. So we're going to be carrying on through Proverbs. And today we're going to be looking at a theme which comes up quite a lot as you go through the Proverbs, which is diligence and hard work, which I hope is a theme that we're all excited to look at. And the Bible talks a lot about this as a concept that's found all the way through. And sometimes when we read in the Bible about hard work and diligence, sometimes it's in the form of a command. So, for instance, Colossians 3 commands us to work as though we're working for Christ himself, to be hard workers. But Proverbs, as said previously, isn't giving commands. Proverbs is explaining the wisdom and the goodness of diligence in our work, in our tasks, and the goodness of hard work. It's about how being disciplined, hard workers, is actually works out in our favor, and it gives us wisdom for doing it. So there's two proverbs that I want us to focus on this morning on this topic. So the first one is a very well-known proverb. So Proverbs 6, verses 6 to 8 says this: "Go to the ant, O sluggard, consider her ways and be wise. Without having any chief, officer, or ruler, she prepares her bread in summer and gathers her food in harvest." So in this proverb, Solomon is saying, "Oh, you lazy people, go and look at the way that the ant works. Go and actually spend some time watching an ant constantly gathering bread long in advance, and be inspired by what the ant does. Act like the ant does." And often people read this as though what it's saying is, don't be lazy, be a hard worker like an ant is. A very dear friend of mine was telling me that her dad used to come into her room and her siblings' rooms early in the morning and pull the curtains and shout, "Go to the ant, oh sluggard," which I think is quite funny. But people tend to think that what this proverb is about basically is don't be lazy, be a hard worker. And so people often think that if they're hard workers, they are doing a good job of being like the ant. They could tell you about how they always make sure deadlines are met, or how they're always at work on time. I could tell you about how I really tried to be disciplined in my third year at college with my essays, for instance. But actually, this proverb isn't addressing that kind of hard work at all. This is actually encouraging us to do something which is far harder than that. Notice that whenever people normally tell you about how they're hard workers or they're disciplined, it's almost always for the sake of someone else, either in the eyes of their boss, or in the eyes of the church leadership team, or to meet a deadline, all those kind of things. But this is focusing on the kind of hard work when you have no one to let down if you don't do it except for yourself, when you've got no one to check on your progress, no deadlines to motivate you. So verse 7 says, "Without having any chief, officer, or ruler." This is about those times where it's just about you being motivated to get on with it. There's an excellent TED Talk on YouTube. I would highly recommend it. If you search, it's called "Inside the Mind of a Master Procrastinator," and it's by a guy called Tim Urban. It's very funny. It's very insightful. But basically, he does everything except for actually read this proverb. He gives the message of it. It's easy to procrastinate before a deadline, or because we know that we will eventually get motivated to do it. It's easy to be motivated to do a task when someone else is being let down if we don't do it, or because someone else has asked us to do it. But we need to be particularly diligent and hardworking when there is no one to encourage us to do the things we should do except for ourselves. I mean, even something like, just off the top of my head, doing a Bible reading plan. If you start a Bible reading plan, none of the elders are going to be ringing you up to make sure that you're carrying on with it. This is about you being motivated to do that, to put in the diligence and the hard work to do it. It's about godly wisdom. Part of being made in the image of God means that we were created to work, to be active, to be shaping creation for God's glory. We need to be diligent in order to be obedient. We need to go and look at the way that an ant operates. We need to be the kind of people who are motivated by ourselves. I think that's a really important proverb for applying godly wisdom to our diligence and hard work. It's really important to understand that concept of going to the ant without any officer, ruler, or chief. She does what she needs to do. And I think, as I say, I think that's a very challenging proverb for us, because, as I say, we're very good. Most of us are very good at being hard workers when it's for the sake of someone else. But the second proverb I want us to read is much, much shorter, but very insightful, and it's very related to the first. And this next proverb is what's called a couplet. And you find these couplets all the way through Proverbs. They're just the two lines where it says something and then something else. Now, the purpose of a couplet is it's very clever. What you're supposed to do as you get to one is you're supposed to read the first one and just chew over the first line. And then there's kind of an implied moment of silence when you reflect on that. And then you read the second line, and the second line is what kind of provides the wisdom. And these couplets are found all the way through Proverbs. So let me read this couplet, and I'll read it in that kind of divided way, like we're supposed to read them. So Proverbs 14, verse 4 says this: "Where there are no oxen, the manger is clean." Okay, so if you have no cows, no oxen, you end up with a very clean feeding trough. No smell. You don't have to put any effort into tidy it up or to clean it, and you don't have to deal with the stench of cows that you can smell from a mile off. So easy life. Where there are no oxen, the manger is clean. But abundant crops come by the strength of an ox. So yeah, you end up with a clean manger, but you have no food. Abundant crops come by the strength of an ox. Now, for us, obviously, we're a bit more detached from the agricultural world, a lot more detached than people in the ancient world were. But oxen were the tractors and the combine harvesters of the day. They were the muscle. You couldn't really operate a farm without one, or without many, rather. And so, in other words, what it's saying is, if you want fruitfulness in life, you have to be prepared to make a mess. You couldn't operate a farm. You couldn't grow crops without making a mess. It's very similar to the English proverb we have today: "Can't make an omelette without cracking some eggs." But the message is very simple, really. Sometimes it requires life to be uncomfortable, to step out and be a hard worker. It requires making a mess in order to get to the things that are good for us to do. I was just thinking earlier about how we have quite what I consider quite a good deal, because I do all the cooking and Anna cleans up after me. But I always think it's so funny that making 2 plates of food always creates such a mess. But it's the same kind of thing. You could change the proverb to say, "Where there are no meals being made, the the surfaces are clean. But without messy surfaces, you don't get nice food." The uncomfortableness that you get from hard work, from putting things in, is worth it. In fact, it's necessary. It's part of it, and it provides character growth. If you want crops, you're going to have to deal with a messy, stinky manger. So when we put those two proverbs together, we have a real keen sense of wisdom, godly wisdom. Bear in mind, this isn't just moralism. This is from God's word. This is God communicating to us. We have a real keen sense of wisdom in hard work and diligence. Procrastination and having a lack of self-motivation is neither wise nor godly, and ultimately doesn't benefit us, the church, or God. As Christians modeled on God's wisdom, we need to learn to be like the ant and be people who are prepared to go and clean the manger. Just imagine all the amazing blessings that the church throughout the last 2,000 years has received from people who weren't being commissioned to write things or to do things. They did it because they thought it was their Christian duty to do it, and so they were motivated. And I think it's the same thing. The church blesses the church when we have people who are self-motivated and are prepared to clean the manger, in one sense. So I think that's a really, as I say, I think it's a really important message that we get from the Bible, and I hope that's helpful this morning. Just as we put that to one side, just as we finish, I'm just going to say, as Andy alluded to yesterday, over the next few weeks, Andy's on holiday and then I'm on holiday. And so we're going to take a break from Proverbs in the way that we're currently doing the devotionals. When Andy's away, I will do 2 next week. So I'll do Tuesday and Thursday morning. And I think Andy will carry on in the same manner when I'm away, I think. So we will be back properly in, I think, 4 weeks' time. But as I say, we're going to take a bit of a break, both for our sakes and for your sake. But I look forward to being with you again, and I hope that's helpful, and I'll see you soon. Great to be with you guys again. Bye.